Come with me to the end of your life. You lay there on your deathbed, gasping for each breath. You can barely move. Then you hear the faint voice of the doctor in the next room telling your family that you could go at any moment. You hear the sobs of your spouse, your children, and your closest friends. The doctor comes in with the nurses and stand over you, shaking their heads. Your life flashes before your eyes. You remember your childhood and how you laughed and played with the neighborhood kids. You remember the fights you got into with your siblings and those secrets you shared with them. You made honor roll in school, or perhaps you were the class clown who always got into trouble. You took part in several sports, played music, participated in school clubs, or hung out at the stores and restaurants with your friends. You remember wearing certain clothes and making fun of those who didn't. Perhaps you were the one that didn't have these good things and felt bitter against your parents and those who criticized you. You think of your first car, your first job, your first date, your first love. You recall your early adult years. You went to college or you got a job. You got married. You had a home you came to every day where your children and your spouse awaited you. You remember the job where you made decent money and spent many years. You recall the birthday parties, the anniversary celebrations, and the vacation getaways. Or perhaps you relive the divorce and child custody disputes, court battles, and lawsuits. You remember all the material goods you held over the years, or maybe you recall all the debt you stressed over and resentment you felt over not having everything you wanted or thought you deserved. You remember your retirement and how your health failed. Your body ached all over, and you weren't as mobile anymore. The beauty of youth had disappeared. Friends you had met through your life preceded you in death. None of that means anything to you now. Everything you were, everything you achieved, was about to be a memory. Your life will be as if it were a dream to those who knew you. The world will go on without you, as it did before you came. Those few years you lived on this earth passed quickly. You feel your heart getting weaker. Your breaths are short. The heart monitor next to your bed bleeps slower and slower. In the deep of your spirit, you feel something's not right. You wonder what will happen once that monitor goes flatline. Some people you knew weren't so sure. Others were confident and warned you. All you knew in your lifetime was about to fade away, and the unknown awaits you. You writhe around on the bed with what little strength you have, trying to stay alive a little longer. Suddenly you gasp for breath. The machine next to you lets out one long beep. You hear your family weeping at the news of your death, and a doctor pulls a sheet over your face. You're surrounded by blackness. Dreadful fear grips you as you recall every plea to receive Christ. You rejected all those pleas. Something inside tells you it's too late, and there is no hope. You pass it off as manipulated thoughts stemming from what those fanatical Christians told you. Yet, the dread grows within you. Your spirit lifts from your body. You see those gathered around you talking. There your lifeless body lies, yet you are very much aware of it. Without warning, some unseen force pulls you downward. You always heard that to be in heaven you would go up, but you were going down. You panic and reach for something to hold on to. But your soul passes through everything you reach for. There's nothing you can do to stop it, no matter how much you deny it's happening, no matter how hard you struggle, and no matter how hard you plead for it to stop. As you pass through the earth into the underworld, feelings of loneliness, regret, and suffering are magnified. A terrible odor burns your nostrils. Somewhere below you, you hear a dull roar and a crackling sound. The smell grows stronger as you descend. The roar and the crackling gets louder. You feel warm all over. Heat gets so intense, it's unbearable. The darkness is so acute, you feel blind and helpless. Faint sounds grow louder and louder. The sound is moaning, screaming, choking, weeping and wailing of an untold number of people. Some of them pray and some of them curse, but all of them scream. The human voices are more deafening than anything you've ever heard on earth. Raging fire crackles, sizzles, and scorches all. The inhuman laughter of demons rings in your ears as they make sport of these hopeless souls. Fire explodes all around you and burns your eyes, your nose, your mouth, your head, your hands, your feet, the rest of your body. You feel the gnawing worms crawling all over your soul and eating you. You cry in pain, chewing your tongue and gritting your teeth. It hurts so bad. Ah! God! Jesus! Oh, God! God, forgive me! Get me out of here! Chewing my tongue, gritting my teeth, hurts so bad. I sense hatred here. There's no answer from God. Someone calls out to you and says God will no longer hear. He says his name is Korah, and he's been here for thousands of years. He turned against Moses and rebelled against God, so the earth opened up and swallowed him. As he dropped into hell, the intense heat caused his body to incinerate. His eternal soul fell into this fiery pit forever. He begged God to give him another chance. God never answered. Korah asked forgiveness for what he did to Moses, but there was no reply. Korah's family is there cursing him for the bad example he was. Korah will be haunted by his sins for the rest of eternity. You hear the shrill screams of a young girl and turn to look upon a familiar face. The girl's Anna Colby, a wild teenager who had problems with drug abuse. Anna was your grandson's girlfriend. Anna's parents warned her repeatedly about her dangerous lifestyle and where it would lead. Only her immediate family really knew how she was. Everyone thought she was a decent and moral girl. She went to church every week and participated in all the activities. Then she sneaked off with her friends, got drunk, involved herself in sexual relations with her boyfriends, and used illegal drugs. She turned your grandson off to church because of her hypocrisy. After each sermon, Anna sat there clutching the bench while resisting God's call to repent. The Lord dealt with her heart 112 times, and she spurned every beckoning from the Lord. One night she was so high on drugs, she slammed her car into a block wall and died in the accident. Anna weeps and begs the Lord to forgive her and speak to her just one more time. She hears every sermon, every warning from her parents, every invitation to Him. Her beauty's gone. Her worms cover her face and flames scorch her twisted body. Another calls you a fool. The burning form says he is the rich man who spurned Lazarus in the parable Jesus told. His torture is unbearable, and he would give everything he had ever possessed for one drop of water. All of his brothers were there with him, suffering the same agony. He grasps your shoulders and shakes you with his flaming hands. He screams that there is nothing worth losing your soul over. Nothing. Another man thrashes around in severe pain. This man curses God for allowing him to be there. Every foul and profane word spews out of his mouth. He is blind and crippled. During his lifetime, he asked God to heal him of a disease, but he refused to make Jesus the Lord of his life. He told God the only way he would accept Christ was if God healed him of his sickness. Others were miraculously healed, and yet this man was jealous. When the man got worse, he cursed God and claimed he had no power or he wasn't real. He went in for surgery, and the next thing he awakened to was the sufferings of this horrid pit. Another man grits his teeth, prays, and quotes scriptures as the flames scorch his worm-infested body. The man was a preacher of the gospel. He saw many converts, but he had never had the salvation in his heart. He preached for fame and fortune. Everyone thought he was a godly man. He fell under conviction at times, but pride kept him from confessing his need. You see a woman that was guilty of murder. She hears the cries of her victim playing in her head, begging her not to kill him. She remembers turning the gun on herself and shooting her brains out of the back of her head. She screams for someone to make it stop as she rolls around in the burning fire. All around you are millions upon millions of souls trying to find relief, reliving the physical, mental, and spiritual horrors of their past and present lives over and over and over. Mothers, world leaders, military commanders, ancient peoples, professors, homeless people, rich businessmen, moral crusaders, sadistic rapists, prostitutes, drug lords, religious gurus, and numerous others of different ages, races, and backgrounds are there. They pray fervently. They swear and curse constantly. You are there with them day and night forever and ever. You will never escape. You have no friends, no happiness, no relief of any kind. You are totally cut off from God. You wish to die, but cannot. The worst feelings you ever felt shroud you throughout the rest of your existence. This is your eternal fate. This is your home forever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever and ever. You see hell. You smell hell. You breathe hell. You hear hell. You feel hell. You are hell. God, no. 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 No.
Well, listen, one more thing about that 9-mile hole drill.
Yes.
Now, look. I think that it's kind of silly. Maybe now, I'm not a geologist, and maybe it would be to your advantage to maybe contact, talk to listeners and see if any geologists are out there. But in my opinion, if you drilled 9 miles down. And you came to a pocket that was 2,000 degrees.
Yes.
You're talking about molten rock.
Virtually, yeah.
And aren't you going to create like a volcano? I mean,
you are asking me questions that I can't possibly answer.
Well, I mean, I know that when they drill it for oil, and they hit the pocket of oil,
yes,
it shoots those drill bits right up out of that hole.
Oh, it does.
And oil follows it.
I know.
And there's so much pressure.
That's correct.
Now, what I'm thinking is...
But they didn't mention in this story pressure. They mentioned a horrid little being that came flying out. Then they mentioned the drill bit turning wildly, and they mentioned a high temperature. But they didn't mention pressure.
But they also mentioned that they lowered a microphone into it.
That's right.
Okay. It's a pretty long extension cord. But anyhow...
Not unreasonable. I mean, it could be done.
Okay, but now I'm thinking there's going to be...
And maybe... And one other thing, sir. Who says they lowered the microphone to the final depth? They may have just lowered it... in other words, they were hearing sounds, right?
Yeah.
And so they may have lowered it just low enough to get the sounds.
Okay, and granted, I mean...
I don't know.
I have an open mind, and which is one reason I enjoy your show.
You've got to admit what you heard. If you did hear it earlier, did you?
Yes, I did.
Pretty awful.
Well, I mean, I've seen a lot of special effects on TV, and
it could be that. I don't deny it. It could be.
I could be, and I'm willing to accept, either way.
All right. Look, I appreciate the call. Let me, for the sake of the audience that joined since midnight, I'm not going to read the full article about the 9-mile hole. I'm not going to do it. I'm just going to read the email that I got last night, along with what I received. This horrendous sound. Now, I've got a clean copy of it now, and I warn you, this could scare you. Here's the email. Dear Art Bell, I just recently began listening to your radio show and could not believe it when you talked about the sounds from hell tonight. My uncle had told me this story a couple of years ago, and I didn't believe him. Like one of your listeners who discounted the story as nothing more than just a religious newspaper fabricated account. The story about the digging of the hole and the hearing of the sounds from hell is very real. It did occur in Siberia. My uncle collected videos and audio tapes and so forth on the paranormal, supernatural. He passed away fairly recently, but he would have loved your show. He let me listen to one of the audio tapes that he had on the sounds from hell in Siberia, and I copied it. He received his copy from a friend who worked at the BBC. It took me a while to find it tonight, but attached is that sound from my uncle's tapes. It's not the greatest quality, but the sounds are there. I was very hesitant to send you this, as the sound bothers me to listen to. I'd suggest that if you do play it on the program, warn listeners in advance so they may have the option of turning the radio off for 30 seconds while it plays. It has always haunted me. To those who discounted the Siberia sounds from hell story, it is true, and I, for one, wish it wasn't. Rick, listening from Chicago. And so I submit now the cleaned, a better copy to you, and I warn you, what you are about to hear is very disturbing indeed. That's it. I'll let you come to your own conclusions, as I usually do.